Chase at the 40. Look at that move. Look at Chase go. Oh, my goodness. What a gear.
He comes down to this in his car end zone. Intercepted.
McPherson. And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl.
Toss here. Mixon's going to throw. Open man. Caught. Higgins touchdown.
Touchdown. Joe Burrow has his first rushing touchdown of the season.
Hooday, Bengal fans. He is Maan. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. Maan, the draft is over. Christmas is over. Let that post-Christmas, post-draft depression set in. But an exciting weekend. A lot of big things happening in Cincinnati. Maan, we have a lot to talk about. Just an incredible weekend. Are you ready to do this? You ready to talk about this draft?
Absolutely. Jake, I got the press conference blazer still on. I got the rings on. I'm ready. I'm excited. It was a fun weekend, and you're right. There's definitely a lot to talk about, and let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Let's talk about the press conference after the draft first, real quick. I think just some important notes. Coach Taylor talked about the status of Joe Mixon, the status of Jonah Williams. No movement there from either end. Joe Mixon, Jonah Williams going to be a part of this football team in 2023. I don't think there's any doubt. You had talked about a little bit of a possibility of maybe moving Jonah in August. I still don't think that's going to happen. I've said it from the beginning. Jonah Williams needs to be a part of this team this year. And it sounded like from Coach Taylor, he said that Jonah is going to be competing at that right tackle spot. So it looks like Jonah Williams is going to be a Bengal in 2023. What do you think?
Yeah, he did say that. It could easily happen. He could be our right tackle. But I think he's more marketable in August with teams' training camps and the potential injuries on other rosters could make him a little marketable. He could easily be a Bengal, or he could easily get traded also. And there's a lot of bodies at that spot fighting. Obviously, he's the leader because he was the number one pick. He has a lot of NFL starts under his belt. Not at right tackle, though. But if he's our right tackle, I'm going to root for him, and I want him to be the best right tackle in football and make it hard on the Bengals next year when they have to try to re-sign him.
Yeah, agreed. And Joe Mixon, again, obviously, we don't know about how the contract situation is going to work, if they're going to move some money around contract-wise. But it looks like, again, Joe Mixon, a part of this football team. They did go out and grab a running back, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But I think this team is going to be better with Joe Mixon on it as well. Your thoughts?
No, I'm happy about that. I hope he is on the team. Zach seemed really confident that he's the way he presented that when the question was presented to him. He says he likes Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon's going to be part of the team. Maybe they've already worked something out with that salary of his, because that was, to me, was the only real hiccup for him being on the roster. Obviously, the legal issues, I think that's going to get worked out. The Bengals are a better team with Joe Mixon on the roster. So I think sometimes people are overthinking his stats, overthinking things. He's still a solid, productive back. And with the rookie that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, I think running back is going to be fine for the Bengals this year.
Agreed. And obviously no other talks about contract extensions. Obviously, Joe Burrow, the Bengals picking up that fifth-year option, which we all knew was going to happen. Guaranteed $30 million in 2024. Obviously, I think it's a step in the direction of we're going to see a Joe Burrow extension very soon. And that all encompasses this money situation with Joe Mixon and Jonah Williams, and those guys both making over $12 million a year. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the contract situations start to work themselves out. But let's get to this draft, Mom, because I hate to say it. I will admit when you are right, which is it's not very often. So I have to give you props when you're right, because it's like a unicorn. It's just so rare when you are right. But again, Bengals go very heavy defense those first 2 days. As you stated earlier, oh God, it's hard for me to even admit to that. But kind of interesting how this whole first round worked itself out when we get to 28, right? And you got Mayer, the local boy, the tight end, who I think a lot of Bengal fans wanted to see his name called. You have a Nolan Smith, the outside linebacker, edge rusher, in that odd front from Georgia, sitting there. And then you have the guy that the Bengals drafted, Miles Murphy, a guy who was projected top 10, top 15 at one point in this draft, and somehow he falls to the Bengals. Miles Murphy, let me just say a couple things real quick. Defensive end from Clemson, 6'5", 270, ran a 4.52, Maan, at 270 pounds. This guy is an athletic freak. Only played 3 years at Clemson, 3 years in college, and worked himself out that way. Ended his career with 139 tackles, 37 tackles for loss, 17 and a half sacks, 6 forced fumbles, 6 pass breakups. He started 27 games at Clemson, and he played in 38 games. So this is a guy who has played a lot of football and was very productive from that defensive end position. Miles Murphy was the pick at 28, and in some draft, these draft experts that talk about how these teams did. A lot of these guys called it the steal of the first round. What do you think? Tell me what you think about the Bengals picking Miles Murphy with the 28th pick overall.
I'm very happy about it. The Bengals visited with him twice. I think the Pro Football Focus, the Athletic, Bleacher Report, a couple other big boards, people that had the top 100 players in the draft. I think the consensus with all those merged together, he was a 17th ranked player in the draft. And for the Bengals to get him at 28, that's major value. I love the pick, Jake. He's 6'4.5", almost 6'5", 270. He ran a 4.540 at his pro day. That is insane. And he's going to come in. You brought up a good point last week. Others did also about we don't want a Dax Hill in the sense of somebody coming in and sitting on the bench the whole year. We need somebody to come in and produce. He may not start, but he's going to play 25, 30, 35 snaps a game. He's going to come in situationally. He's going to give Hendrickson. He's going to give Hubbard a breather. It's going to make them a lot better players because they're going to be fresher during the year instead of getting 60, 70 snaps a game. He's going to come in, he's going to produce, and he's going to generate pressure. Something you said a lot last year, we have got to get to the quarterback. Pressures are great. We got to get sacks. Bengals, I think, were 29th in the NFL last year in team sacks. That number definitely has to go up, 30 sacks total. And I think with Murphy, that's going to happen. He's an athletic freak. Listen, it was a great pick. I love the fact, listening to the press conference, reading some of the publications, the Bengals were considering trading back. They had offers. They decided to sit there at 28 and draft him. They get that 5th-year option. They don't lose that. And I think we're going to look back in a few years. This is going to be a quality draft pick. Hopefully he turns into a Carlos Dunlap type player, gets us, 8, 9, 10, 12 sacks a year.
That would be great. I mean, obviously, if that's the case, then this is a home run pick. One thing we haven't talked about is obviously there's some contract extensions having to come up here soon on that defensive line. So maybe again, we talked about it a little bit on the draft special. Is maybe this is the Bengals also looking at where they're going to be sitting here in a year from now. Again, I like the pick. Obviously, everybody knows I wanted that tight end or that running back. Both running backs went in the top 12, I think it was. Didn't Gibbs go 12? So kudos to me for talking about Gibbs and how impactful a player he is. The Lions saw the same thing, went out and got Gibbs. So Gibbs and Robinson both went in the top 12, which was insane. We haven't seen that. I don't even know when the last time we've seen two running backs go in the top 12. And I don't know when we've ever seen when the last time we've seen a running back go over a wide receiver. But I think with those guys getting drafted then, and then you got Kincaid getting drafted by the Bills a couple picks before us. I think it'd have been really interesting if Kincaid was still sitting there at 28, if the Bengals would have jumped on Kincaid. But Mayer was there. It just didn't happen, and Mayer actually fell to that second round. So Laporta went before him, which again, I don't think a lot of people saw happening. So the Bengals don't go tight end, which I think a lot of people speculated. But Lap talked about it before, and you've talked about it. The Bengals running 11 personnel 80-something% of the time, that three receiver set. I guess tight end is the fourth option, and this Bengals team feels very good about that tight end room right now.
Yeah, I think what you just said about Kincaid being there at 28, that would have been really interesting. I think they visited with him twice. That could have been the pick. We don't know. You're right. Lapham said it. Some people were thinking, is it a smoke screen from Lap? But it wasn't. He said if they draft a tight end, it won't be until at least day 3. The way this offense is currently constructed, they just don't throw to a tight end a lot. I think what Lindsey Patterson said it the other night on our show with Ace and Zim, that the Bengal tight end had 400 yards receiving last year. Yeah. And it's very wide receiver centric. And I don't know, maybe Mitchell Wilcox comes back. Who knows? We'll see. But, they didn't pick one. And I am surprised they didn't pick one, at least on day 3. I was a little stunned by that.
Yeah, me too. I think the Mitchell Wilcox thing is definitely I could see that the percentage of that happening, I think, shot through the sky after this draft. I think we will see Mitchell Wilcox back in a Bengals uniform. Let's move on to day 2. And the Bengals picked at 60 and originally at 92, I believe, right? 60 and 92 were their picks. At 60, let's talk about 60. The Bengals go corner. And again, this is something that you said on the show. I'll give you props. You talked about you would love to see a D-line go first round and a corner go second round. You got your wish, Maan. The Bengals go and get DJ Turner II from Michigan, 6 foot, 180 pounds. Maan, a 4.26 40. This guy is blazing fast. Played at Michigan, was a 4-year letterman at Michigan. He was the highest graded cornerback in coverage by PFF since 2021 at almost a 90 grade. So this guy is a coverage beast. 4 years there, 69 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 3 INTs, 20 pass breakups. He was the 2022 All Big Ten team. He made the All Big Ten team last year. In 37 games he played in, he started 22. This guy is best friends with Dax Hill. They even joked about last year the possibility of this being a situation. The Bengals go out, they get Dax Hill's best friend, a guy he's very comfortable with back there in the secondary. But they get a guy, Maan, that, as I said earlier, this guy was the top-rated coverage corner in college football since 2021. This dude can fly. He is to me, Maan, I'm going to say this right now. Day 2 for the Bengals this year was incredible. Both the guys they got, I think, were the best 2 picks of this draft for the Bengals. But DJ Turner, he's going to be a huge addition to this Bengals team and their secondary, that back end of the defense. We know the Bengals love speed back there. Maan, they got even faster than they already are. Tell me about DJ Turner. What do you think about this pick?
I'm very happy about it. I went back and I listened to episode 2 of the Bengals Pulse. That was last year after the draft. And we both said something multiple times on that episode. That draft had speed, speed, speed. Well, so did this one. 4.26, which was the fastest time at the combine. Uh, ESPN has next gen stats, or NFL.com does. They gave him a ranking here, which is through the roof. His athleticism score was 97, which was one of the highest. Total score of 86 compared to his production score. Elite athlete. Uh, it was much needed. That DB room, little thin depth wise, definitely needed. And Bengals ended up drafting 3 defensive backs in this draft. I love it. Teammates of Dax Hill. There's going to be some chemistry back there. He's going to come in. I wish he weighed a little bit more. He's a little slight. Normally the Bengals go with 190, 200-pound defensive backs. They sort of went outside their comfort zone there. But you know what? They'll feed him up there. They'll get his weight on. What else can you say? I mean, he's going to play a lot for this team. He's going to be on the field quite a bit. And he makes that DB backfield, DB room much better. And I'm glad he's a Bengal. Him and Dax Hill reunited. They seem really excited about that. At least he did during his little presser. So good move by the Bengals. It was much needed.
Yeah, and I think too, yes, the weight, it's a little bit smaller than what the Bengals typically like, but 4.26 speed, that's something you can't coach that. There's nothing you can do about that. I mean, this guy is blazing fast. And just like with the Miles Murphy pick in the first round, I think the Bengals, again, they're looking at this defensive roster and they know they got some contracts coming up, right? Cheeto's coming up next year, Hilton the following year. Again, I want to see Cheeto on this football team, but the Bengals really, we saw kind of a shift where the Bengals are getting younger on defense because they know they're about to spend a lot more money on offense. That's happening, Mon. T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase the following year. The Bengals are going to pay a lot of money on offense for these guys. So defensively, it makes sense to go out and start looking at the future of this defense. And I think that's what we saw the Bengals doing is going out and getting this defense younger. I'm not saying they're not going to re-sign defensive guys next year. I'm just saying it makes sense that the Bengals are preparing for the future. This guy, I love this guy. I think this guy is going to be playing a lot of football for the Bengals this year. Again, if his coverage skills translates to the NFL, this is a steal, Mon, an absolute steal getting DJ Turner at 60. All right, now we move to the third round. Very interesting round at that, right, Mon? The Bengals are sitting at 92, and I can tell you right now, I was at a draft party at Great American, and when the Bengals were up at 92, everybody's standing, everybody's waiting to hear what the pick was. And then all of a sudden it says the trade to Kansas City, and everybody started booing. I mean, the entire draft party just started erupting in boos. But the Bengals, very interesting, Mom. They trade with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bengals moved down 3 spots to 95. And they pick up the Chiefs' sixth. I think it was a compensatory 6th-round pick, which was the last pick in the 6th round. And the Bengals do that with Washington sitting there, the tight end from Georgia, who eventually went the next pick to the Steelers. They again, I just think they feel that like this tight end room is good. And again, I feel like they don't put that high of an importance at the tight end position. So Washington sitting there, the Bengals trade down, and they take a guy who I am very excited about. To me, again, like I said, the DJ Turner pick was outstanding. This pick to me was maybe even better than the DJ Turner pick. They go out, they get the safety from Alabama, Jordan Battle, 6'1", 206, ran a 4.5 40, played 4 years at Alabama. In those 4 years, Mon, obviously Alabama only lost 6 games. 6 games this guy played in. And again, I'm not saying he was the reason for that, but obviously a part of that piece. 2-time all SEC selection. Finished his career with 6 interceptions, 3 of those for touchdowns. So a guy who, when he gets the ball in his hands, very dynamic at the safety position. This guy was PFF's highest graded safety in coverage since 2020, Mon. Since 2020, this guy is the highest graded safety in coverage at almost a 93 grade. So we see the Bengals in the 3rd round go the best corner, the best coverage corner, and the best coverage safety. That should tell you something, Bengal fans, that this Bengals team, they know how important that piece of the puzzle is. And now they have this safety that comes in and might be competing for a starting spot when fall camp happens. Tell me, Mon, what are your thoughts of Jordan Battle going at 95 for the Bengals?
I was happy with it. A lot of people on Twitter weren't actually. That they were thinking tight end. Listen, he's 6'1", 210 pounds. He is fast. His athletic score is average, but he's the one of the biggest publications I've read online, print. One of the things they said about him, his football intangibles, his smarts, they are off the charts. So he knows where the ball's going to be. He knows his assignment. He knows what he needs to do, and that makes him a faster player. Playing at Alabama, he had 6 career interceptions. 3 of them were returned for touchdowns. That tells you something right there. I love that stat. He's very versatile. He can play in the slot. Obviously, he can run support. He's going to be a plus. Lou Anarumo is going to have a field day with him. The Bengals played a lot of 3 safety looks last year. They need safeties. Again, the depth was a little concerning. They did draft 2 last year. I think that's why everybody was shocked on Twitter. They drafted 2 safeties last year. Why draft another? You can never have enough good players. Defensive backfield, premium spot. He's going to play a lot for the Bengals. He's going to play a key special teams player. And for the Bengals to get him, great value. I can envision him being our Von Bell guy in the next couple years. They seem like very similar players, a little taller than Von Bell, but I can see him developing into that role. And Lou Anarumo seemed very excited about getting him at that press conference.
Well, I think, again, Lou loves those safeties that can help run the defense. And this guy, like you said, his intelligence is through the roof. I'll tell you why you go out and you get another safety, because you just lost 2 of them, right? I mean, again, I know Bengal fans were upset with this. Why are we drafting a safety when we drafted 2? Well, because we lost 2 really good safeties this year. And you got to go out and you got to find guys that can come in right away and make an impact that can hopefully make you forget about losing those 2 guys. And I think this guy does that. I think Jordan Battle, he's playing for the best college football program that has been around for the last decade. So he's played at a very high level. He's been coached well. Most of those Alabama guys that come out into the NFL, they are ready to play pretty much right away. And I think this guy is really that Von Bell replacement that you were just talking about, with the Bengals playing a lot of 3 safety looks. I love this pick. Like I said, this pick to me was my favorite of the entire draft. And I just think that this was a huge need. And not only that, but he was the best player available. And we saw that throughout this entire draft, Mon, is the Bengals went best player available at almost every pick. Almost every pick, they went best player available. And we saw that with these first 3 picks in the first 2 days. The Bengals, Myles Murphy, best player available. DJ Turner, best player available. Jordan Battle, best player available. So not only do they go and they fix some roster openings, but they go out and they get the best players available. I thought day 1 and day 2 was a home run. I was on the tight end bandwagon. There's no doubt about it. But I'm very comfortable with this because, again, defensively, I think it's important that the Bengals start restocking on that defense. Now we move to day 3, Mom. And day 3 was very. I don't know if you saw Callahan's with the first time he walked up for the presser after they picked their 4th round pick. But he joked about, oh, finally I get to talk to you guys. You know what I mean? Because he's basically sitting there with his hands in his pocket the first 2 days going defense, defense, defense. And now we see a run on the offense, right? In day 3, a big run on the offense starting at 131 with wide receiver Charlie Jones from Purdue, 6 foot, 188. Maan, he runs a 4.43. Only played 1 year at Purdue. He transferred from Buffalo, but in that 1 year, Maan, he's only one of 3 Boilermakers to record 100 receptions in a season. So in 1 year playing at Purdue, he becomes one of only 3 Purdue receivers to have 100 receptions in a season. He finished with 110 receptions, 1,361 yards, 12 touchdowns. That 1,361 yards, Mon, a school record. He had 8 100-yard receiving games. He had great hands, great route runner. You saw a lot on Twitter about this is that slot guy that the Bengals really coveted. He's very fast. Again, I could see this guy right away coming in and playing a lot of football for the Bengals, not only on offense, but on special teams. Had some great dynamic returns, punt return wise. So this guy, again, another home run pick for the Bengals, and a very fast guy, very athletic guy. What do you think of Charlie Jones, Mon?
Well, I'm glad they picked a wide receiver. They needed to upgrade the depth there. I liked his speed. He's a little older. A lot of people on Twitter were chiming in on that, which I personally don't care about. I noticed Bengals.com had added 13 pounds to him because at the combine he weighed at 175. He's a little slight, but you know what? One thing I loved about his bio, 90 punt returns. He returned 1 for a touchdown. I think he's going to play a key role in special teams. I love what Louis Riddick said on ESPN yesterday. If you watch that, they were talking about him. I think Todd McShay mentioned something about him playing in the slot, potential replacement for Boyd. Riddick says he can play the outside, that he saw him cook multiple players that were drafted yesterday. He's fast. This guy seems instinctive. I think Joe Burrow is going to love him. And the speed, the depth behind our big 3 has improved dramatically after this draft. We're going to talk about the other wide receiver in a few minutes. He bounced around. He played at Buffalo for a year. Then he played at Iowa for a couple years. Luckily, he left Iowa because their offense was horrible. Went to Purdue, and he took off. He had, like you mentioned, over 100 receptions, 1,300 yards. That says something at a major university. Listen, I'm glad he's on the team. The speed aspect, what he's going to bring special teams wise, that's something we needed. And I'm excited to see him develop in the preseason and the regular season. And he makes the Bengals a better team.
And you talked about some of those DBs that he cooked. One of them, Mr. Joey Porter Jr., the guy who went first pick in the second round to the Squealers. They met up this year. And let me tell you, Charlie Jones against Joey Porter Jr., 12 receptions, 153 yards, and a touchdown. So Squealer fans, good luck. Good luck. Because this guy is almost uncoverable in college football. So like you said, I mean, the Big Ten, obviously one of the best conferences in college football this year. And this guy tore it up. He tore it up. So I love this pick. Again, you and I have talked about the depth at receiver. We talked about when TB went down against the Chiefs, how detrimental that was in the AFC Championship game this year. And I think the Bengals understood that. And I think actually, didn't Brian Callahan actually say something about TB going down in his presser and how important it was to go get some depth? So at 131, the Bengals take Charlie Jones. We go into the 5th round. And after Callahan talks about Charlie Jones in his presser, he says, now it's time to go get a running back. And the Bengals go out and draft a running back in the 5th round. Maan, they go out and they get Chase Brown, running back from Illinois, 5'9", 215. Maan, again, another 4.43 guy. This guy is blazing fast. He was the 2022 Doak Walker finalist, 2022 All-American, 3-time All-Big Ten team. He was one of the top 22 players in college football this year. They do that Walter Camp Award, and he was top 22 players in college football, Mon. He was a semifinalist for that Walter Camp Award. This year, he had 328 carries, 1,643 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Again, in a very good conference. Some would say the second best in college football. He also had 27 receptions for 240 yards and 3 touchdowns. So finished with almost 2,000 total yards, 13 touchdowns. Mon, he also had 1,000 yards last year, so 2 back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and he didn't even play the entire season last year. But I think the biggest thing about Chase Brown, what we see, is he is an excellent pass blocker. He is one of the best pass blocking running backs in this draft. We know the Bengals were looking for that in a running back. They went out and they got this guy who was so dynamic with the football, Mon, who is such a great pass blocker. The only knock on him is the fumbles, right? Having a hard, I think he had 6 fumbles or something. Again, but that's something that Coach Hill said that's coachable. We can fix the fumbles. What do you think about Chase Brown, the Bengals' new addition to the running back room, Mom?
Needed. I'm happy with it. He's a total, absolute workhorse. The way you described the stats, they used him a lot. He had a lot of carries, so he has a little bit of tread there. And super athletic. He was the star of the combine. He was just lighting it up with his speed and athleticism. They were talking and raving about him during that process. 5'9", 210 pounds. He's a little shorter. He's compact, which is fine with me. You talked about that 4.4 speed. When he touches the ball, if he gets a hold there, he could break it and go all the way. He's going to get a lot of carries. He's going to see the field a lot. Fumbles are concerning. You are right, but they can coach that up. I think he fumbled once every 80 carries, which doesn't really sound that bad, but he carried the ball a lot. Yeah, he did. He was their workhorse, and his brother played on the team last year. Brother was drafted by the Eagles. That was pretty. That was a great video of him being emotional when he got the phone call from Zach Taylor. I love seeing that. I'm glad he's on the team. Seems like a really great guy. He's going to be, a great locker room presence. Again, the Bengals don't get enough credit for building a great locker room, and that chemistry they have. That's played a huge part in getting us to 2 AFC Championship games. And this is an elite talent, super athletic. Again, speed, speed, speed. This is what we're talking about in this draft. And, buddy, he's got it. And that running back room is much better with him on the roster.
And again, I talked about this. This is why I wanted Jamari Gibbs so badly, because the Bengals need a good 1-2 punch, right? Thunder and lightning, Mixon, and another guy, and a guy who can just be explosive with the ball and be dynamic with the ball, a guy that obviously can catch the football out of the backfield as well. And they get that with Chase Brown, a very exciting addition to this running back room. And again, a guy who has played a lot of football for a big time conference. I absolutely love the pick. So the Bengals fourth, fifth round, right? They go out and they get this some offensive weapons. So what do they do with that first pick in the sixth round, Mon? They go right back and get another offensive weapon for Joe Burrow with the 206 pick. Hopefully, I say this right. The Bengals go and they draft receiver from Princeton, Andre Yoshivas. And Andre Yoshivas is 6'3", 212 pounds. So a bigger, lengthier receiver. But guess what, Mon? He also runs a 4.43. Again, this guy's athletic numbers are off the chart. The Bengals absolutely destroyed. If you guys love that RAS thing, that athletic simulator, you are going to love this guy because he almost had a perfect score, Mon, at a 9.96 RAS. His career, 125 receptions, almost 2,000 yards, 16 touchdowns. In 2022, 66 receptions, almost 1,000 yards, and 7 touchdowns for a team that really doesn't throw the ball very much at Princeton. This guy is one of the best players in the Ivy League. Andre Yoshivas at pick 206. Again, another weapon for this receiver room and for future Hall of Famer Joe Burrow. What do you think about Andre Yoshivas at 206, Mon?
I'm intrigued by him. I remember him at the combine. He's an athletic freak. He's an All-American track and field player, contestant, whatever. Amazing athlete.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it a contestant player? What is track and field? No, but I guess if you looked at the pick, I think you realize tight end isn't that important to this offense when it comes to pass catching. They drafted another wide receiver. Again, like we mentioned with the previous pick, the Bengals needed to upgrade after the first three. We saw that firsthand in that AFC Championship game. They really struggled. The guys couldn't get open. This guy's going to develop. First year might be just like, hey, let's figure things out. He hasn't played a lot of football, but his athletic score is through the roof. 4.43, like you mentioned. He had a 39-inch vertical. This guy's explosive, 6'3", 210 pounds. You mentioned Battle is your favorite pick in the draft. This is my favorite pick because I really think he could develop into one of the better wide receivers. I shouldn't say in football. He's going to be a solid pro. He's going to be a TJ Houshmandzadeh type. 6'3", 210 pounds. If with Troy Walter, somebody you know very well, he's going to coach him up, and he's going to be a very productive player for the Bengals. And I see him really taking off. He's going to be a special teams player now. Could give us maybe some return ability. But somebody this size, this athleticism, to get him at this point in the draft, home run for the Cincinnati Bengals. Home run. And I expect big things from him.
And again, you said that size running a 4.43, Mon. This guy is another blazer. So we see the Bengals go out there and get 3 offensive weapons, guys that all run 4.4s. Very exciting to see how this whole thing is going to pan out. And let me get a quick shout out before we move on, because the Bengals fan of the year, Phil Amrine, he goes out and he does the 4th round pick. He's the one that did Charlie Jones's pick, announced it. And he does the coin flip, Mon. I mean, Phil is now going to be legendary in Cincinnati lore. How awesome, real quick, how awesome was that whole presentation by Phil? I mean, I got to give it up. I got to give it up for Phil Amrine. I mean, that was just incredible. Even the guys on NFL Network almost kind of gave him a shout out, just to go out there and to basically stick that in the NFL's face. His speech was absolutely flawless. It was perfect, Mom. What do you think about Phil Amrine absolutely representing our Bengals the way he did at the draft?
Somebody tweeted something about that in Cincinnati, if he's at a bar, no, he should never have to pay for a beer. The
That's
reaction,
true.
the reaction from Rich Eisen was great. It was a mic
Uh,
drop moment, and
oh, it's
hats
great.
off to him. It was beautiful. Well done. Well
Well
done.
done.
I
Well
salute
done.
you, sir. I salute you.
Well done. All right, let's go back to the draft. Here we go, Mon. So the Bengals trade down in round, what was it, round 3. Trade down in round 3. They pick up that 6th round pick from the Kansas City Chiefs. And what do they do with it, Mon? They do what we all knew they were going to do. They go out and they get a punter. And how apropos is it that the Bengals go out and trade with the Chiefs to get a player to replace a guy who very well hurt the Bengals' chances of going to the Super Bowl with that punt at the end of the AFC Championship game. They go out and they get Brad Robbins, the punter from Michigan, 6'1", 203. Stout, Mon, stout. 44 career games at Michigan. His career average, just around 43 yards a punt. But I think more importantly than all of his stats, Mon, this guy had no touchbacks in 2022. None. 0 touchbacks in 2022. That is huge in the NFL, flipping that field position. What do you think of Brad Robbins, the Bengals' new stout punter? What do you think?
He has a great mustache. Jake, I have absolutely no problem with drafting a punter. I don't have a problem with it at all. I at this point in the draft when they picked him, Andrew Voorhees, a guard from that injured his knee at the combine, many people thought was a second round pick, was still available. That I wish they would have considered that. I believe this punter would have been available in the 7th round. Instead, Voorhees ends up going to the Ravens. That would have been unbelievable value getting him, redshirting him, obviously, because of his knee injury. He's considered one of the top guards in football. He was available. I just wish they would have considered that. Do we need a punter? Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. What happened with in the AFC Championship game, the guy, no hang time, kicked it right down the center of the field, game over. See you later. We do need an upgrade. He's going to be the punter. We don't draft a punter in the 6th round and cut him. He's going to be the new punter for the Bengals. Yep. Your stats, he can obviously do it. I guess the big positive about him, unbelievable hang time. So congratulations to our new punter. I'm not anti-punter. We do need one. I just wish they would have went another way with that pick and picked up our potential guard of the future, but maybe next year.
I got you. And I don't disagree. I think the one thing I love, somebody put on Twitter, I don't know who it is, sorry guys, but somebody posted a picture of the villain from Sonic the Hedgehog and said, we just drafted the villain from Sonic the Hedgehog because of the mustache. Listen, you say that he would have been available in the 7th round. I'm not so sure that's the case, Mom. We saw a lot of kickers getting drafted in this draft, and I think you're starting to see more of an emphasis on the importance of that position. I'm not so sure he would have been available in the 7th round. And again, let's remember something. This wasn't a draft pick to go out and get a guy to battle for the position. Mom, we don't have a punter. So again, this was a pick to go out and get a starter, not to go get somebody to compete for a position. So I would completely understand your reasoning if this was, we already had a punter on the roster, we're going out trying to get a guy to compete. But to go out and get your starting punter when you did, this guy was legitimately the second best punter in this draft. I thought it had to be done, to be honest. I thought it had to be done because, again, people joke about it, but punting football in the NFL is an extremely important job. And we saw that in the AFC Championship game on how important it is for those guys to flip that field position. One bad punt can cost you a trip to the Super Bowl. So I like this pick. All right, here we go. 7th round comes around, And again, we've seen some good 7th-round picks. TJ Hushmanzada, obviously coming to mind. The Bengals have hit some. They've hit some home runs in the 7th round. At 246, the Bengals go out and get another DB for that corner room, that DB room. They go out and they get cornerback DJ Ivy from the University of Miami. 6 foot 194, so a little bit bigger, like you talked about earlier. This guy also runs a 4.4, 4.46. In 2022, he had 38 tackles, 5 pass defense, 2 INTs, 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries. Started 32 games at the University of Miami, played in 58 of those games. He finished his career with 127 tackles, 17 pass defense, 6 INTs, 2 forced fumbles. He was a 5th-year senior, but again, not sure this guy makes the roster. Hopefully he does, but this guy has some serious potential, Mon, and played again at another big program. What do you think of the Bengals going out and getting DJ Ivy for that DB room at 246? What do you think?
I like it. 6'1", 195, like you mentioned, good length, good size, very athletic. Played at Miami. I think he had 6 career interceptions. He's worthy of that selection. We'll bring him in, see what he has. Could be a core special teamer. If he doesn't make the team, obviously I think he's an obvious practice squad candidate. Bengals do keep 10 defensive backs. We'll see what we got with him here. Lou Anarumo, defensive back coaches are probably the best in the league. When they're scouting guys like this, they see people with potential, people that can come in and contribute. I think he's worthy of the pick, and we'll see how he develops in time. But with his pick, with Battle, with DJ Turner, the defensive backfield room got a lot better. That depth has improved dramatically, and it makes our roster a lot better. It needed, because to me, that was the most important thing going into this draft. It was razor thin, not anymore.
No, agreed 100%. And, not to call either one of us out, but in our 2 mock drafts, Mon, neither one of us picked a guy that the Bengals selected. Maybe next year we'll do that. Real quick, I do want to talk about that RAS, the RAS scores right now, because the Bengals did not draft anyone below average when it comes to athleticism. Now, obviously, Brad Robbins did not have a score because there's no love for punters for some reason. But the highest I think we had 4, maybe 5 guys that had over 9 RASs. Andre Yoshivas had the highest at 9.96. Jordan Battle had the lowest at 5.9. What do you put into this RAS score, Mon? I mean, obviously the Bengals went out and got a bunch of athletic, fast guys. But what are your thoughts? I want to know on this RAS thing. Is this something that we as fans should be excited about, that we went out and got all these guys that had such high marks in the RAS? What do you think?
Now, I think it's important. It's obviously a very key element when you're scouting a player. Athleticism, you can't coach speed. You can't coach that stuff. But it's the intangibles that really make the player. Jake, how many times have we seen guys that run 4.3, 4.4s? They're just not mentally tough. They're not physically tough. They don't know their assignments. They don't know where they need to be. It's just the athleticism is huge, but the other stuff is just as important. I would rather have somebody that's an okay athlete that is through the roof when it comes to the intangibles. That mental toughness that can play through pain, that knows where he needs to be. Let's talk about a former Bengal, Vontaze Burfict. You remember his combine? He embarrassed himself. It was one of the worst testing ever for a combine for a linebacker. What did he do when he came to the Cincinnati? His instincts were unbelievable. He was probably one of the smartest linebackers the team had seen in years. He knew exactly. He knew the defense like the back of his hand. He knew, basically, he was like clairvoyant. He knew where the ball was going to be before the the team on the other, the player on the other team was going to get the ball. He was just brilliant. That's, it's definitely a part of the process, but I think, those other intangibles are just as important.
And you talk about Vontez again, if Jeremy Hill doesn't fumble that football in 2015, the game you and I were at, Vontez Burfict to me is the MVP of that postseason, because what he did the second half to the Pittsburgh Steelers was absolutely incredible. And unfortunately, it all got overshadowed because of Jeremy Hill fumbling the ball, giving the ball back to him, and then obviously we all know what happened after that. But don't forget, Vontez Burfict had that huge interception that set up what should have been the game-winning 3 knees and a field goal. And again, like you said, and I want to say something real quick before you go. Let's look at a guy like John Ross, right? John Ross, a guy who was off the charts athletically. And what did we get from John Ross? We got one good football game against the Seattle Seahawks.
AJ Hawk is on the show with McAfee, and he mentioned the smartest linebacker he ever played with was Vontez Burfict. He said he was like a coach on the field. He knew exactly where to be, when to be there, and he knew where his teammates needed to be. So when you're average athletically and you're that football smart, you're playing. I mean, if you're a 4.7 guy and you're that smart, you're a 4.4 guy, because you're one step ahead. Mm-hmm. And so I think the Bengals really, they look at athletic scores and they look at the whole picture. I'm not trying to downplay RAS. I think it's very important. I got in a little skirmish on Twitter. There's so many analytic guys that just throw these things out. Well, this, that, they're just literally overthinking players. And it's just annoying to me. It's so annoying.
Yeah. Well, I think Jordan Battle is going to be a great example of that. You talked about it, how smart how intelligent he is, how football smart he is. And he had the lowest RAS score, but he might end up being the best player of this draft because of his intangibles, because of how smart he is and how he gets to the football. Maan, real quick before we get out of here, obviously the Bengals still right now, as we're filming, in the process of signing undrafted rookie free agents. We will talk about that list next week, but I do want to throw this out here. They did sign Duke linebacker Shaka Hayward, an undrafted free agent rookie, and linebacker Shaka Hayward, now a Bengal. Maan, they gave him a $30,000 signing bonus, which was one of the highest of any of the undrafted free agents this year so far. Interesting to see how Shaka Hayward pans out on this roster, because obviously the Bengals think very highly of this young man, Shaka Hayward.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Bengals normally don't give out a lot of guaranteed money to these undrafted free agents. $30,000 is a lot. And interesting to read up more on him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, before we get out of here too, let me give a shout out to the Reds, baby. 5 in a row, going for 6 today. Very exciting right now. This team is scrappy. I love what they're doing. All right, Maan, next week we will talk about all those undrafted free agents that the Bengals are signing right now. But if I asked you right now, give me a grade on this Bengals draft, what are you giving them? What is the Bengals grade from Maan Kuiper in this draft?
B+.
B+.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go A-. I'm going to go A-. Again, I think they went out and they filled some positions of need, got some athletic guys that can run around, play some football, and some guys that come from big programs that were very productive. So very exciting draft. Guys, let us know what you think. Let us know in the comment section what you think about the Bengals draft this year. Maybe if there were some guys available that you thought the Bengals should have drafted, let us know who you thought the best pick was. Guys, let us know what you think about this draft. Maan, another edition of the Bengals Pulse is in the books. Once again, guys, if you like this podcast, make sure you like, share, subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you check us out on all the podcast platforms, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. As always, make sure you follow us on Twitter at Bengals_Pulse9, on Instagram, the same without the at, Bengals_Pulse9. And as always, if you like this podcast, please give Maan and I that 5-star review. We would very much appreciate it. Check out all the awesome podcasts right here on the Wincinnati Podcast Network. He is Maan. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse. Hoo day, Bengal fans. We will see you next week.
See ya.